sir. Community Director of OCC, Joyce Hicks.
Thank you very much, Inspector Munch.
Observes the suspect go through a backpack on the sidewalk.
I think it was actually 3
Observes the
hours.
suspect go through a backpack on the sidewalk. As the suspect sees Mr. Aran, the suspect then starts to leave, leaving the backpack.
Yes, it's only a 2-hour.
Thinking on his feet, he grabs the backpack, or evidence, and continues to follow the suspect.
The influential activist who helped me to connect with Commissioner Loftus, I do believe that my kit would still be outstanding. So I don't really want to go on any further, but I wanted to draw this concern, and it's a concern for me. It's a concern for the welfare of our whole city.
Thank you, Ms. Martin. Thank you for your courage in coming in tonight.
Commissioners, Ray Harris, Director, San Francisco Open Government. I want to thank Commissioner Chan for making this additional opportunity. Following 4 hours of presentation in which the presenters and the commissioners get unlimited time to make comment and ask questions, those of us in the public only get 3 minutes, and we have to do triage and talk about the items that we feel are most important. Unfortunately, what that does is it gets us labeled as being negative people who only focus on things and who want to simply make people look bad. No, it's the fact that one thing is more important and the other is not. First, on the mental health issues, I would like to make an official...
Was it actually the comment on the OCC Director's Report? Was it a different agenda item?
Records request for a copy of the handout that Commissioner Chan gave to the other commissioners.
This was it?
So that I can be available for that. On the crisis intervention training update, I appreciate that greatly because I've been here on at least 3 occasions where discussions were made about funding the ways of substantiating what went on.
Comments now closed on line item 3A. Let me take a brief recess before we move to line item 3B.
That's the end of this DVD.
Because I think justice delayed.
Us at every possible machines, stop your gun list, let's get on this, and that would be
A misdemeanor vandalism case where the jury wanted DNAs.
the NIJ has given over the law being organized by SF4, very methodical from the ASAP program is negative. Somewhere around 60.
The IT is to strengthen.
And we've reconciled some of those.
Well, this seemed like a good idea. Maybe it turns out that
California has very patient student kids participate. It's funding.
I do have to have the last half.
Very even-handed, and of course with Greg as our chief,
If you would like to continue with other testimony, already.
Yeah, where did we go? We had Member Washburn, and that's the DVD. Who else? And who was next? Member Sims? Did you have your hand up? Nobody? No?
Member Washburn's question was still pending.
Well, I was interested in this segment where Mr. Hartz was speaking for 3 minutes, and it looked like he may have been interrupted towards the end of his 3-minute time. So I was just wanting some more information based on what you observed. If we're going to be seeing it momentarily, then I'll wait. We'll see it myself.
Okay.
Along with everyone else.
Victor, sfgovtv.org. respondents have evidence such as this that may be useful to the task force, it would be great to bring it and queue it up and have it all ready so we're not like hanging out like this.
My comment is that this was submitted by the police department. It is in your packet, and if you did not review it, that is not the fault I have. It is the fault of those who chose not to look at all the evidence.
Not provided to all members.
Excuse me, I have to leave the gallery for just a second. Such professionalism. Thank you.
What's the date?
That's planning.
If I might, I'd just like to apologize for not queuing it up, but we bought the whole DVD because we didn't want to be accused of leaving anything out. So that's why we bought the whole meeting. So I apologize for that.
Will it be at the end of 3B?
It's at the 3 hour and 17 minute one?
3 hours, 17 minutes.
I believe member Pilpel's correct. You just click on 3B, and that'll get you there. Or close.
Pledge allegiance to the flag.
22:29.
Good evening, President.
Over this moment, due to the climate reason, is commission president. Chief, at some point, can we be briefed on what our
Possibly 1 minute to see the box.
Can you make it bigger?
Signature for 9, I think we're just waiting that full screen.
Yeah. also get more volume on it.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, any public comment regarding line items 3, B, C, and D?
Commissioners, Ray Hartz, Director, San Francisco Open Government. I only have the Office of Citizen Complaints 2012 annual report since yesterday, and I haven't therefore had the time to examine it with the intensity that I shall apply in the future. I will, however, make one comment on tonight's presentation. This is completely OCC centric. It's about their caseloads, their this, their that. And as usual, because I reviewed 4 prior years' concerns, there's absolutely nothing to tell how citizens who file a complaint with the OCC feel they were treated or what they experienced. In other words, it's all focused on what the OCC thinks, and as far as the people who participate in using the OCC, there's nothing. And I can tell you, after my experience in 2007 and the one I have talked to you numerous times about this year, I would never see any reason to file a complaint with them unless I needed to do so to meet the legal requirement to file a civil case in court. It's a pointless exercise, nothing but frustration, and done in a star chamber atmosphere where you're not allowed to know anything, especially the officer can say anything in their talk with the investigator, and you're not even entitled to know what they said. So far, I see this as nothing but a Potemkin village on paper. Going forward, I will combine the information from this report with others and my own experiences interacting with OCC. I will also make use of other reports such as the 2003 Civil Grand Jury Report and the 2003 San Francisco Controls Report, along with other materials I have available. In the decade between the 2003 reports and 2013, the changes, in my view, have been nothing but cosmetic. I don't know about you, but I'm looking forward to future discussions. To sum up my initial reaction to this report, I think it is appropriate to use a quotation from Mr. William Shakespeare's Macbeth. It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing.
You know, Mr. Hartz, we don't call anybody an idiot in this chamber. Mr. Hartz, there's a sense of decorum in here. We were laughing and fooling around before. You don't refer to anybody at OCC. Who was I directing it at? You do not. Who was I directing it at? The reports. Who was I directing that quote from Shakespeare at? You said you don't attack a person. I didn't attack a person. I read a quote from Shakespeare. How was that an attack? Okay. All right. Commissioner Turman.
I think although I thought the report is OCC's interest because it's about reporting the data and the information that comes out of the OCC, but although I was a little surprised by the quote, I will say Mr. Hartz perhaps does have a point that perhaps after 5 years we could add it, not through this report, but on a separate sort of document or something, some kind of...
So as I said before, the best thing that they could have done was to get the direct evidence. There was the DVD. If I remember correctly, Monroe said that Mr. Hartz had looked at the person, signifying that he was directing the comment to. If you looked at the video, and the video here that I taped, he was reading. How could he be looking if he's looking down and reading? I wonder if this will be brought up, if it will even be pointed out, because like I've said many times, the devil's in the details, and the Sunshine Commission is the shield for the city. It'll probably get glossed over, but not by me, and hopefully not by Mr. Hartz.
The OCC since late 2011 has been sending customer satisfaction surveys out with its preliminary disposition of what.
So I'm going to go backwards. Let me make sure Member Washburn, Member Pilpel, if you have anything in that order, then we'll go to Member Sims. So Member Washburn, you're first. Going in the opposite order. Member Pilpel? Member Sims?
And I want to apologize to the complainant and the respondent for my tardiness. I did have a question for the complainant. So let me you were, essentially after that quote, you were done, correct? You did have, it sounds like you might have had some seconds on the clock.
I had time on the clock, and he started his comment, which I considered a personal attack against me, before I had finished.
Mr. Hart, you also turned in your statement, that would signify that you were done.
No, I was done reading the statement.
Right, but you didn't.
But you turned it in.
Never mind, we'll get to you next.
Yeah, but he's right, you did turn in the statement. As in, that was the end of your speaking time, that you had done, you were done. But, and you never, and I'm just trying to clarify. Do you understand my question? Maybe you don't.
I wasn't given the chance to decide whether I was done. I was immediately attacked. I was immediately accused of making an attack on the director of the OCC, and I don't know what I know some of you don't like me because I'm in your face type of guy, but I'm not a stupid person. And there is no reason for me to attack Director Hicks. She is a very intelligent person, a very capable person. I like her very much. She is very personable. And very honestly, I'm not stupid enough to attack her with no basis. To make just some, I think this is basically a comment that Mr. Mizuko took as an attack because that's the kind of thing he would do.
Well, no, maybe you're misunderstanding what I'm, I guess, asking. I'm trying to get at, in what way was your statements or public comments abridged? And I'm trying to figure out and work through how and why they were truly abridged.
If you get up and make a public comment and then somebody immediately says, "You're a liar," is that an abridgment of your comment? Just because you finished, does that give them the ability to say anything? Now, Mr. Turman made a legitimate comment. I didn't say anything about him, didn't file a complaint against him. He said, I have a question about his comment, but he does have a point. And that's legitimate response. But accusing somebody in public of insulting someone when you have no basis for it, I was very clear if you read the statement. I was talking about the reports and supplemental reports, all the reports I've seen in the last 10 years, not all of which were presented by Director Hicks, have all been the same way.
But do you understand that words can have multiple interpretations, and it is a fair, at least in my view of this case, it's a fair interpretation that you made could go both ways in the fact that interpreting your statement as not specific to anyone, not calling anybody idiots, very benign in your nature, or the alternative side of the spectrum, actually attacking someone and actually calling someone an idiot. And in which case, his response was appropriate in the fact that he felt you were attacking a person.
What his feelings are and what the facts are two different things. Did I, something was said, "Oh, I looked at her." Well, for heaven's sakes, what are we doing public comment? I made a comment, it's a quote from Shakespeare, and I didn't want to edit, I wanted to use the full line, because I don't think Director Hicks actually wrote that report. I think it was written by her staff, and it is simply a self-report on themselves saying, "We do good."
Well, I mean,
and he can take it any way he wants, and he can make a legitimate comment, and just like Commissioner Turman did, he can say, "Mr. Hartz, I took that the wrong way," but to stand up and say, "You don't have the right, you are attacking this person," is across the line.
But once again, your statement was done. I do not feel that he abridged you to the extent that it violates the ordinance. And don't get me wrong, I don't believe that your statement was to the extent the secretary has made. I don't believe you looked at him and he felt threatened or somebody felt threatened. I don't believe that. But I do believe that Mr. Mizuko's response
So does
was
that mean that the
his
secretary told the
belief
porky?
that your statement, your final statement, and it was not an abridgment, was
In sunshine.
crossing the line of a personal attack? And you believe,
So,
Mr.
if
Rizzuto,
I
let me
accuse
finish,
you
let me
of being a
finish,
liar-
wait, I'm gonna finish.
Okay.
And as well as you believe Mr. Mizuko's comment was an attack on you. So, I mean, it cuts both ways.
I think,
And I mean, go ahead, I'm sorry, I yield the rest of my time.
I think what we're seeing here is, I don't think technically there's anything that we can help you with on this. I think this is a combination of cumulative experience, feelings between you and Mr. Mizuko that came out this way. Was his response appropriate? I'm not sure about that. But I think your statement was complete. You turned in the paper. Should he have said what he did when he did? Perhaps not. But I'm not sure we can help. I'm not sure that falls within our jurisdiction.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
What's to prevent him in the future of doing the same thing over and over again and then simply saying, Mr. Hartz makes comments that are not appropriate and he should not be allowed to attend it, because he did cite the mayor's policy regarding personal attacks. And I think he insinuated, if not basically indicated, that he thought I made a personal attack. That's a charge. That's not simply he disagrees with what I said or anything else, which are legitimate comments under the Sunshine Ordinance. It was an actual, you did something which is violation of policy, and he did it in front of God and everybody.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think it was a personal attack. I think it was a quote about the report. I saw it that way. And if that is brought against you in the future, I hope you will, I'm sure you will, bring that back to us or whatever body would look at that and would protect you in that case for your free speech, your sunshine rights. But I think we have to kind of rule on the merits of.
That wasn't the question that was asked.
Transgression here, and I don't see it.
Member Washburn?
Yeah, this is a tricky one. It was helpful to see the actual video. And it all happened very fast at the end. And so when I read the account of it, I was envisioning Mr. Mizuko actually interrupting what Mr. Hartz was saying in the middle of his 3 minutes, in which case that would have been a clear violation of the ordinance and a definite abridgment of Mr. Hart's First Amendment rights to address the body. But looking at the video, it wasn't, again, it happened so fast. It wasn't clear to me that Mr. Hartz was being interrupted. It looked like he might have been finished what he had to say, and he was given a chance to say all of what he had to say. In listening to what Mr. Hartz said, I didn't think it was a personal attack against anyone. Granted, I know Mr. Hartz well after all these years, but no, I don't think any reasonable person looking at that would have thought that Mr. Hartz was personally attacking anyone. But given that there was a history there, maybe his remarks were taken the wrong way. And I think that the shouting down of him was over the top. And then Mr. Hartz became upset, which is understandable. This is a hard one. So was Mr. Hart's First Amendment rights abridged? And I'm tending to think that they weren't, but boy, if he's ever prevented from speaking because it's thought that, you wouldn't like what he has to say, then boy, he comes right back here.
Not to make light of it, but quote Shakespeare in the middle of your statement, then maybe you'll interrupt.
Or maybe choose a different quote that's just as
It's a good quote.
clear. Yeah, this is a good one.
It's not in century. It's such a well-known quote that I don't think anyone could possibly take it as a personal attack.
Yeah.
And yet he did.
Member Pickle?
So in reviewing briefly here the Good Government Guide, pages 126 to 131, that's the
Are those
section,
the sections cited?
not specifically, but that's the section on rights of the public at meetings, including public comment, time limits, content, procedures, etc. Having now watched the video and hearing the discussion, I think we need to bear in mind, and I don't want to belabor this because we've already spent a fair amount of time on this. The public has the right to comment, including to criticize programs and reasonably to comment, to criticize people and their conduct, reasonably so. The members of a body have an obligation to hear that comment. They need not respond to it. Much public comment in this city and in the world is not responded to. I think if a member of a body chooses to respond, they should do so in a measured way, but they can respond, in my view, to something that they consider over the line, and their individual comment, I think, is just as protected in their right to do so as the member of the public's right to comment and criticize. So this concept of criticism being legit, I think, works both ways. If you want to be able to criticize people from one side, you need to be able to take a certain amount of criticism in return. The question then becomes whether either side is over the line in harassing or discriminatory remarks, or something else that's clearly beyond the scope. Without getting too deep into setting a standard, I think in this instance, it hasn't been shown that the response by Mr. Mizuko to Mr. Hart's comment was over the line, was not over the line, and that both individuals exercised their rights reasonably, and that there was no abridgment or, what was the other term? Abridgment or prohibition of Mr. Hart's comment. And I agree with Member Sims and Member Washburn and Member Highland that it appeared that Mr. Hart's had concluded his public comment, and there clearly was a reaction from President Mizuko, but it didn't seem entirely unreasonable under the circumstances. That's my view of it.
So I have two more questions, one from Member Oka and then one from me, but go ahead, Member Oka.
Okay. Having read the transcript of Mr. Hart's comments and hearing Mr. Mizuko's response, I believe that we as public officials, and in our role, we are public officials, and we are held to a higher standard, and if we don't conduct ourselves, and I think the way Mr. Mizuko sounded, in my view, it was inappropriate. I would never, and I've been attacked in many venues that I've sat as a public person, and I choose not to respond to that. We don't have to respond to it. As a matter of fact, if I'm so angry about something that happened, it's better that I don't say anything, because I'm going to regret what I say next. Okay? That's the way I am. I'm just hoping that others, use good judgment and common sense. And I don't see enough of that from our public officials these days. I'm very disappointed, and I think, in my view, Mr. Hart has the right to say what he said. I don't think that same right stretches to us. It's our job to listen, make appropriate comments, and in the case of individual commissioners who choose to speak out against criticism of the body, that should be done by the chair of that body, through the chair of the body. That's been my training, it's always worked for me. I don't like attacking people in public. Doesn't work for me.
Thank you, Member Oka. I have one last question, and it's for Mr. Hartz. And I can see you fine.
Sure.
I'm just drilling down. Early in your statement, you made a comment about, I haven't been to a commission meeting since then. And I'm the most detail-oriented person you could ever meet. I'm drilling down. Have you not gone to meetings because you were told you couldn't go, or you haven't gone because your own reasons?
I did not go because I was afraid.
Okay.
When we left City Hall, they were all standing outside, and I had Mr. Mizuko approach me physically, and he had to be held back by the chief of police. And I took that as a threat. And very frankly, I wanted this all on the record so that this pattern that I mentioned before is very clear. I think Mr. Mizuko will in the future, when he doesn't like my comments at the police commission, use this kind of an effort to keep me from making public comment. And as I said before, it's already happened on several other occasions. I'm going to talk about in general public comment. I was removed from the Board of Supervisors chambers in handcuffs. I had a complaint filed against me against the law by the Library Commission president for something I said and she said as a threat. And I think it really is an issue about the fact is, do the citizens of this city have to be so careful about what they say that that is an actual restriction on their First Amendment rights? Do they even have to be careful not to look the wrong way or make the wrong face for fear that that will be used as an excuse to intimidate them?
Thanks. So do I have anything else from any members of the task force? Okay, so next on the item we will hear 3 minutes each, first from the respondent, that's Inspector Monroe, and then Mr. Hartz will get 3 minutes as the complainant to offer rebuttals and conclusions. That's not where you are. Thank you, Inspector.
Thank you. Just one short one. Mr. Hart talks about the knife, or one of the members talked about the knife cutting both ways, and it does. And when I was here giving my initial comment, Mr. Hart called me a liar. So he abridged my comment at that point. But he's here today to say that Commissioner Mizuko abridged his when it was clear he was complete. He handed me his statement after that and started to turn and walk away. And basically that's all I have to say about that.
Thank you. You ready? The timer? Oh. Okay.
I keep forgetting we have this timer here now. Ray Hartz, Director of San Francisco Open Government. Right now I will apologize to Inspector Monroe. When I used the word liar, it was not directed at him, it was directed at Mr. Mizuko. Mr. Mizuko does not have the moral integrity to show up and explain himself why he did what he did, why he felt it was justified. It was the same thing when he told me I wasn't allowed to talk about things. And very frankly, I think any person serving on a board or commission in this city who is willing to use the authority and the power granted them by that position, and yet will then refuse to come and deal with an issue when someone feels that they have had their rights violated, basically does it for one of two reasons. In this case, I think Mr. Mizuko, being a practicing attorney, a former prosecutor, knew full well that what he did was doubtful at best. Now, I don't have any problem with the discussion that the board held, this task force held today. I know it is a touchy subject, but I wanted on the public record that Mr. Mizuko engages in this kind of behavior. So that in the future, if I come back here, it's not going to be, gee, you know, Mr. Hart's da 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 da. It's going to be, look, this happens again and again and again. And the man just seems to want to find a way to stop public comment with which he doesn't agree. The very first meeting I went to with the police commission, he sat up there, looked me in the eye, and said, "You can't talk about this." That was a lie. If you're an attorney, you know that's not the truth. If you've taken sunshine training 6 or 7 times, you know that's not the truth. If you're familiar with the Brown Act, you know that's not the truth. And he sat there, looked me in the eye, in the eye of the public, and said, "You're not allowed to talk about certain things." And as I said before, he's tried it on several other occasions. And I'm getting a little sick and tired of him trying to use his position to shut me up. And I've watched him do it to other people. So the bottom line is, this is on the public record, and now I feel comfortable that I can go back to the police commission, and they will be on notice that if they start to do what they're doing again, that I will be right back here. Now, that doesn't mean that the very first time he did it, he's treated it as a joke. He thinks your finding was a joke. He thinks the task force saying that he violated my rights by telling me I couldn't speak about certain things was a joke. And I think the fact that he's not here tonight thinks this whole process is a joke.
Okay. Do I have any motions from anyone?
Public
There are
comment?
two options here. A motion or no motion?
Public comment?
Not yet.
Okay.
No motion?
Madam Chair?
Yeah.
I'm not going to make a motion, but I do have a comment. I don't know if this is the appropriate time or after public comment, but I do have some thoughts on this.
Yeah, go ahead.
The only reason that I'm not making a motion to find a violation is that Commission President Mizuko made his remarks, made his protest to Mr. Hartz after Mr. Hartz had finished speaking, after his 3 minutes time had expired. Had Mr. Mizuko interrupted Mr. Hartz, he would definitely be in violation of Sunshine Ordinance Section 67.15D. And I want to make this respectfully through Inspector Monroe. Commissioner Mizuko should be put on notice that he needs to be aware of that. You know, even if he didn't violate the ordinance per se in this particular matter, if Mr. Hartz's characterization is true, where Mr. Mizuko or any other commissioner continually intimidates people, continually cuts them off, continually protests what they're saying, and having the effect of creating a chilling effect, dampening public willingness to come forward and comment on matters before the commission. Maybe it's not sunshine, but it's violation of the First Amendment and could be, you know, there are other avenues for redress on that, perhaps much more serious than what this task force can mete out. Again, respectfully, through Inspector Monroe, Mr. Mizuko should be made aware of that.
Thank you, Member Rooney. Okay, so hearing no motion, I'm gonna declare this matter what? Would you, I got it. Hearing no motion, I'm gonna declare this matter concluded, and I'm now gonna take public comment, as it says here on my list.
Isn't this a well-trained chair? There should be public comment on it, shouldn't there?
Hearing no motion, I'm gonna allow public comment, and then I'll do something else after that.
Is this general public comment or public
It's
comment?
public comment on this matter.
On this particular matter?
That's correct.
Thank you.
A3, that is correct. Public comment on this matter.
Knowledgeable chair.
Apologies. I think you didn't consider a few things. Firstly is the Good Government Guide, the section of the mayor's memorandum that talks about the speaker feeling harassed or intimidated in any way. And the fact that Mr. Hurst didn't go back to any meetings after that was not a good sign. He obviously felt intimidated. We don't know what happened in front of this building, but certainly if that had happened to anybody else, they would have kind of freaked out about it. And that's not good at all. So I think it's a good sign that he's come here today and put it on the public record in case it happens again. And also there's the fact that he had an order of determination for almost an identical thing previously.
Okay, I've been patiently waiting for public comment on this particular matter, and I cannot begin to even hold down the feelings that I have when it comes to this commission here and what you've just allowed and the harm that you've done to Mr. Hartz. First of all, I believe that Mr. Monroe, told quite a porky pie when he said and looked at you directly and said, that he had looked at either Mr. Mazzullo or Miss Hicks when he made that comment. And it was obvious on the video that he was reading. There was no way, but that was an extreme porky pie that was allowed by this commission in full sunshine. Mind you, in full sunshine, to let him say that and to skewer, what Mr. Hartz was saying, to poison the well. Not a single one of you picked up on that. It's amazing. It's on video, and it's on my video what he said. Now, the other amazing part is that Mr. Mazzullo is not here now. Everybody was bent out of shape because of what Mr. Hartz said, educating us. The most civilized society. The grand beacon that we sit on a hill here, full transparency, full sunshine, and everything else. And Mr. Monroe, basically said that, and yet at the same time, Mr. Hartz didn't look at anybody, didn't accuse anybody, didn't use anybody's name, but when Mr. Mazzucco directly attacked Mr. Hartz, it was personal. He used his name. But none of this seems to matter because you know what? We're looking for an excuse for a person who's repeatedly done this, according to Mr. Hartz. The Ministry of Sunshine, to obscure what is the truth. What should be noticed? What should be held and what should be important? So that, yes, Mr. Monroe, in his wonderful capacity, could come up here and say, like I said, that porky pie. But Mr. Mazzuzzo, who said directly what he had to say, can't be here to be questioned as the most knowledgeable person in this. No, he has a proxy speaking for him. Is he channeling for him? Wow, I really wonder. But I can tell you a lot. This is not due process. As a matter of fact, speaking about due process, there isn't a full board here. Where's the other 4 members? Look at your bylaws. You don't even enforce that. You guys are so much of a farce. I can't even begin to tell you. And in this last decision to take no action, yes, I hold you guys to a higher standard. Just like I would Mr. Mazzuzzo. But unfortunately, he has you to cover his back. Isn't it wonderful here at the Ministry of Sunshine? Thank you. Enjoy. Have a nice day. God bless.
Good evening, task force members. Thomas Piccarello. Shakespeare wrote another book, Much Ado About Nothing. And with all due respect to Mr. Hartz, his complaint had no basis under the Sunshine Ordinance. What will happen now is that this complaint will incentivize Police Commissioner Mizuko to continue making comments after public comment. So I think Mr. Hart's did a disservice to members of the public in bringing this meritless claim. But I am disappointed the task force that spent 75 minutes in reaching this conclusion that the complaint by Mr. Hartz had no basis in fact. Thank you.
Thank you. Inspector, no, you're one of the respondents.
I'm just asking.
Yeah,
Okay,
no,
thank
you can't.
Okay, thank you.
Do I have any other public comment from anyone that was neither a complainant or a respondent? Hearing none, public comment on this matter is closed. And this matter is concluded.
This item is concluded due to a lack of motion.
Thank you. So, Mr. Clerk, can you